Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I decided that I was going to play the Hunter F.58. Now, I've spaded a bunch of hunters in the game. The F1 for the British, I've also nearly spaded the Swedish one, and also getting into the Benelux one too. But the F.58 is easily the best of them all, and it's basically just because of the armament that it gets access to. There's a reason why this one's 9.7, but then again, the good old hunters in the British tree, especially the good old F.6 with its SRAMs, is the same BR. So maybe that should be a bit recalibrated. The F.58 is way better than the F.6. It is basically an F.6 with just a better armament and also better defenses, which is why it's so weird to see at this BR. And I would definitely class the F.58 as another one of these vehicles that has very, very high offensive capabilities, but not exactly the best flight model at its BR, so it's kind of in a weird doldrum place, which means it can dominate in a very fantastic way. Now, for some reason for me, when I saw these missiles, the Flz Lwf 6380s, I decided in my head, and this must have been a recent thing, because I remembered these missiles from ages ago, but I thought they were just AIM-9Bs. I don't know why I thought this, but for some reason in my head, that's what I saw. But the fact is, these are not AIM-9Bs, they're actually more like the AIM-9Ps, meaning that they have much better overload than other missiles. They have 20 Gs of overload instead of the 10 that you get on AIM-9Bs, which is really nice. And at 9.7, what you'll find with these air-to-air missiles is a lot of vehicles without access to countermeasures. So you can easily set them up, and you can easily knock them down. It's just about target acquisition that is around. Now, there is a problem with target acquisition, actually, at this BR range, and it's the fact that you can not see what you're firing at until you're really close. So I'll give you an example, okay? And I really wish they would change this. If you see MiG-21 as an enemy, that could be a MiG-21S, could be a MiG-21 SPSK, could be the MiG-21 SMT, could be the MiG-21 MF. So out of those four vehicles, there's only one that you really want to fire the missile at, because there's only one which doesn't have countermeasures, or the others have the ability to have countermeasures. But you don't know that unless you get a kilometer close to them, and that won't work, because there's no need to get that close to use the missile. At that point, you're going to use your guns. Then, with the Q5, you can't tell if it's the Q5 without the countermeasures or the Q5s with the countermeasures until you get that close. So I would expand that out a little bit. It's a bit close that you have to get in order to tell which variant of vehicle you're running into, because obviously that is, you know, a bit of a problem. So for me, with the hunters, obviously the missiles are really good and they work really well. Means that you can actually play a different playstyle with this hunter compared to the rest. I actually prefer this playstyle, and the way that you do it is because you don't have the raw speed of a lot of other vehicles at this BR or even lower BR than you. What you have to do is you have to go to the side of the map, get around 3 to 4 kilometers in height. And then you wait for the initial engagement, you look for people who are dogfighting and attacking, and then you go above and fire the missiles down. The reason why you do this is because the missiles on this thing don't have as much boost on them, so they're not as powerful in terms of length as stuff like the AIM-9G and the D, so the P needs a little bit more help. So you going in that diving formation means that you give it extra speed and also gives it a bit of extra length on where it fires. Also picking targets, as I said, which don't have countermeasures, that's the way to deal with this thing, and that makes me really sad, but to be honest, when Gaijin gives you an opportunity, you have to take it. The other part of the offensive armament that's really nice is the 30mm. The 430mm on this thing means that you pretty much win every head-on, and also you have a lot of ammunition, 600 rounds, to be able to deal with many enemies that are around the place. Now, let's talk about its defensive capabilities, because usually a hunter's quite good in offensive ways, but defensive ways it kind of falls apart. So once an enemy is on you, you kind of struggle. Well, this F-58 is different. It actually gets countermeasures. So anything with missiles, you can basically get the missiles off of you. The only one I've ever struggled with is the PL-5B, but that's just because it's got a hell of a motor on it, and it can just fly straight through flares. But basically, the countermeasures will stop anything coming for you. This vehicle has a non-afterburning engine, which basically means that you are not going to have as big of a heat as kind of like a heat ray where you can use the countermeasures very effectively. What I'd generally say is because the countermeasures fire downwards to turn or roll your vehicle to 90 degrees and then fire them one way and then slightly move the other way. So therefore the missile will go completely opposite to where you're going, and it works very well. So I only died, I think, twice to missiles, and they were both because the missiles just went straight through my countermeasures, which was quite fun. From a defensive capability as well, one of the things that the Hunter should get credit for is it really doesn't lose a lot of energy in a turn, and also a supersonic aircraft bleed way more energy in a turn than this thing. So what you can do is if something is going for guns, you can defend against the guns, and then instead of making them overshoot, you can turn to a point where they've lost so much energy you can burn away even from supersonic aircraft. And this means that there's a bit of extra distance between you and the enemy, and you can kind of go from there. And for me, I find that actually really fun, because you can't really do that with a lot of vehicles in the supersonic area, which are subsonic, but with the F-58, you can, and that's quite fun. So it's one of those which can defensively fly pretty well, and since you have the missiles, if you do actually make something overshoot, which is also possible, you can then just ram a missile up them as well, which works fantastically. So overall, I would say that's actually really nice. Now, modification-wise on this thing, the missiles are rank 1, so they are definitely the thing that you go for first. The air-to-air missiles, of course. And then I would actually say you might as well skip flares and chaff. Nowadays, you get countermeasures stock, and what the modification gives you is the ability to pick how many flares and how much chaff that you want. I don't think that's needed, because there's like 2 vehicles you can run into that use semi-active radar homing missiles, and they're not very good at this BR. So yeah, you can't maintain radar lock, you can't really do anything with that, so I wouldn't bother with it. There's no point in getting this mod if you're only dealing with MiG-21Ss and also Mirages, which have really rough radars to be able to hit you with semi-actives. So it's much better just to stay with the countermeasures and go for other stuff. The G-suit is obviously a must, and also the boosters is a must, since this thing turns very aggressively and also at the same time can keep a lot of energy in the turn. You want to turn as much as possible so you can bleed it from enemies. The fact that this gets a rank 2 G-suit, by the way, is really odd. Usually G-suits are a lot further down in the actual modifications. They're usually at rank 3, so that just makes it a lot easier to play this thing compared to others. And then you get the cover, and you've got to either pick the rockets up because you need 2 rank 3 mods. So what I would say is I did offensive 30mm and then new 30mm cannons because I knew I'd never use the ground ordnance. But if you are, a person who just wants to get to the higher end stuff like the engine and the wings repair to get this thing going, then of course you can do that. It's a little bit easier to do, but for me I thought I would just get the guns rolling first, and then you just get the performance upgrades, and then what you do is you get all of the other upgrades that exist. So if you have a look at the Hunter F.6 as well, the SRAMs, to get 4 of them, it's a rank 4 modification. To get the G-suit, it's a rank 3 modification. And also quite a pricey modification at rank 4, 16k for the SRAMs, right? Whereas for the German Hunter, you get the G-suit at rank 2, you get access to missiles at rank 1, you get access to countermeasures straight away. You can see why this is a lot easier to play compared to some of the other Hunters. And then on top of that, you actually get Mavericks at an incredibly low BR, which you can use in ground, which is really nice. Now, I haven't used any of the ground ordnance, I just played this as an air-to-air vehicle, and it was super fun. You just have to make sure your head's on a swivel so you can defend against stuff coming in. You will every so often get caught out by people going, you know, further around the map and hammering you in the back, but there's nothing you can really do about that. Like, it's just kind of a fact of how War Thunder's played. But so far, this was my most successful hunter to date in terms of play. Surprisingly, it's also my lowest win rate hunter. So we went 33 battles, 48% win rate, 85 air kills, 16 deaths. So a pretty good 4 to 1 KD, especially in a plane which generally doesn't have great flight characteristics compared to what it faces. But just understand, that's the power of having great missiles. And this is just one of those vehicles that I feel like is going to be stuck in a very good place for a long time because of those missiles. They basically mean that whatever happens, you can do something on the battlefield, which is very, very positive. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.